Hey guys, it's me, Bittersteel here, back with another video for Hearts of Iron 4. And today we'll be playing as the Guangxi Clique. Now I know what you're thinking, it's such an easy country, what could you possibly do as Guangxi? Well, we're going to try and get ourselves some achievements today. First of all, Battlecry. We have to annex all of Chinese core territory, fairly easy, as well as all of Japan's core territory. A little bit more of a challenge, but still fairly easy. And at the same time, we will also be going for Panda-Monium, which requires us to be in a conflict with every one of the other Chinas. See, that's the curveball here. Other than that, we could have the possibility of maybe picking up Sun Tzu and make a man out of you. Now, I can't guarantee Sun Tzu. It requires an inordinate amount of combat on a single general. So we'll see if that happens. I'm not going to go out of my way to get it. It might take forever. So, Iron Man mode on, historical AI focus is on, so we know when Japan is going to do its Marco Polo incident, and start. But first, if you like these videos, leave a like and hit me up in the comments telling me what you want to see me try next. Maybe a cool challenge, maybe some achievements you're having trouble with. I'm always open to some more suggestions. Also consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload more content. Other than that, we have a very cool and active Discord community. I'll leave links to that down in the description below. And if you're one of those people who likes Twitter, I also have a Twitter. You can find the link for that in the description as well. But enough rambling, onto the video. As you can see, Guangxi is in a fairly good position. Mostly because of its resources. We are sitting on quite a large supply of resources, and we're going to be exploiting this later on. But first things first. Start off with the military. What I like to do is pile them all into an army and split off these three less experienced units to a separate army. They don't need a general, and I will park the inexperienced ones in Haiku, this little island port on Hainan. The experienced units will be given our only general, and I will park them on the shore tile here. This is the port in Guangdong next to Fujian. If I'm massacring some Chinese pronunciations, I'm sorry. You'll see why we're doing this in a bit. As for construction, I like to open with a few civilian factories. Five-ish seems reasonable. Now for production, there's not much we can make besides more guns or transport planes. So I think we'll go for more guns. So add 3 factories to the basic infantry equipment and let's go. Research! We have 2 slots. Not great, but we can improve that fairly quickly. I like to start out with the General Liu rifle, so we don't have to make these terrible Type 88s. The hit and production efficiency isn't a big deal. And our second slot will start with artillery. I want to make artillery as soon as possible. Why? Well, we'll be fighting other Chinas and Japan. Japan hardly fields any armor. The Chinese factions only field pure infantry, so artillery really shreds the enemy. For future research, we'll mostly be working on our industry, keeping that up to date, as well as our research, and then pretty much focusing towards the relevant army techs. Now, if you're into tanks, Guangxi is in a very good position once the industry starts building up to work on tanks as well. So if you like, you can start researching tanks early. I'm not going to, I'm going to stick with infantry for this game. Now, as for focuses, we will be rushing down to border clashes with the nationalists. This will allow us to start border conflicts with the big China. I don't usually pick up cross-border raids first. This will allow border clashes with the other warlords and the commies, simply because we only border Yunnan and it's not really great territory to start pushing into until those 6 units that I plan to use for border conflicts are where I want them to be, because right now these are terrible. I can't use these for much, so I'll need some time to build up, and my initial conflicts with Major China will have a major advantage towards us because, well, Big China's distracted, while Yunnan usually doesn't really do anything but stack troops on its border. So with that in mind, we will be rushing towards border clashes. Other than that, not much to do for now, so let's put the game up to the maximum speed and get cracking. Now, I also like to set these guys to exercising. It's mostly important-ish for the border units. They need to be as experienced as can be. The rest, well, it's just nice that they're not green anymore. Ah, the Xi'an incident. We can invite a Shanghai Czech. Doing so will allow the Chinese United Front to form a little bit early. I like to do this because I want to give the Chinese United Front the best chance it has against Japan. the better the Chinese do versus Japan, the more time we have to start gobbling them up from the rear. Just ask him to ally. It is our only option. We will arrest Chiang Kai-shek and send him to the communists. And the Chinese United Front forms. You don't have to do this, I just like. Now, as you may have figured out by me pointing us towards border clashes, we will be going opposition, which means we will not be doing any form of cooperation with the nationalists or the communists. They are all the enemy. We will also not be joining the United Front. No, we will be making extensive use of the border conflict mechanics to gobble up regular China and as much of the warlords as we can without actually fully annexing them before we finally make our move.
Later.
And we have 100 PP, time to make an investment. Few things that are beneficial. We could go up to partial mobilization, but I don't really see the point just yet. Likewise, we could go up to free trade and make extensive use of that massive resource pile that Guangxi is sitting on. This is actually a pretty good option. Personally, I like to take the military theorist, giving us army experience. We need a lot of experience if we are to turn our templates into something that is not garbage. We now have our artillery and our better guns. Time to switch over to something else. I like to take the basic machine tools. That will lead towards dispersed or concentrated, whichever pick you like. I like to take dispersed, and we can move on from there. For our second slot, I could go with electronic engineering, get some research speed. I could even get some construction going, but I'm not really fussed right now. No, much of our early game will consist of border conflicts, which means I need to have my army in tip-top condition, or at least those 6 units that I plan to use for it. So I'll be switching over to superior firepower, really stack those units. Now for any Chinese faction, mass assault works perfectly fine, but I just really love superior firepower for all the soft attack it can give, plus it's easily one of the better trees. As for production, we will leave 1 factory making the General Liu rifle. The other 2 factories will be making some towed artillery. We can finally give our boys the much needed punch they need. Now, as army experience starts to trickle in, we will also be editing our template. This is our basic template. 8 combat with 4 infantry battalions. It's pretty garbage. First order of business will be to add 1 infantry battalion to it, at least taking up to 10 combat with. Still pretty garbage, but we can make this work. We'll also immediately duplicate this and turn them into Jingbei. These reinforce as reserves, garrison divisions. Save that. Now we have 2 templates, they're identical. The Jingbei will be our garrison units slash the fodder, while the Juntuan, these guys will be our frontline divisions, the heavy hitters. Any additional changes will first happen to this division. We'll also take those 3 units that we parked down in Hainan and change them over to Jingbei, and just keep everyone exercising every time you change division template, so they keep the maximum level of experience possible. We can absorb the losses in equipment, it's not a problem. So a little foreshadowing about what my plans with this will be. I plan to produce a very large amount of these pretty terrible divisions. We can still upgrade these to, say, a 20 combat with division by simply doubling the numbers. But these will be the frontline units that are just going to stand there and prevent the enemy from attacking us. And at the same time, we will be improving these shock troops quite significantly. First up to the standard 7-2, 7 infantry battalions and 2 artillery battalions, and later on up to a 14-4, so doubling that, 40 combat with division. Those will be our shock troops that will be punching through enemy lines, while the rest follow behind and basically just fill up the front line. And the reason why I only have 6 of these right now is rather simple. I want these 6 divisions to be as experienced and well equipped as possible. Only 6 units can participate in a border conflict, so I want those units to be absolute elite units, guaranteeing us victory in every border conflict, so we can eat as much of China with minimal losses and minimal time wasted. Next up, personal leadership. This will give us a field marshal for free as well, so no point in getting one early.
3 days later.
And with our basic machine tools done, let's improve our industry further. My personal favorite is always going to be dispersed unless there's some very specific use cases, so I'll be heading into dispersed industry. Equipment production is coming along nicely, so let's keep improving these units. And again, early improvements will go exclusively to our shock troops, the Zhuantuan, or however you pronounce that. Finally, on to the border clashes with the nationalists. We are going to eat so much of China. they'll never know what hit them. Excellent, we have the first tech in superior firepower. Now, while the rest of this tree is certainly ideal and we will be getting it, not right now though. It takes 332 days, that's quite a long time. I'd rather get some shorter ones like support weapons 1 or interwar artillery. Those finish quicker and provide a very nice boost to those shock troops that we're building. So support weapons it is. And we have another 150 PP. We could spend this. However, while it would be nice to go up to free trade, we almost finished border clashes with the nationalists, and every one of those border conflicts requires 100 PP, so I very much like to sit on 100 PP all the time, enabling us to do a conflict whenever we choose or whenever one comes available. So from this point onward, it would be beneficial to treat 100 PP as your new 0. With that in mind, we will not be going up to free trade just yet. We're going to be waiting. And we have more army XP to use, so let's add another infantry battalion to the Juntuan. There we go, we have finished border clashes with the nationalists. Now as for focuses, we want to get down to proclaim a rival government eventually. But first we are going to pick up these 4 focuses here from the right side of the tree, all the way up to long-term economic planning, and we'll pick up public education reform along the way, that extra research slot. For the border conflicts themselves, we will be staging incidents. Where can we stage incidents? Well, you must select the province that your 6 divisions are in and see what provinces they border. So in this case, I have my troops in Guangdong, and Guangdong borders 3 Chinese provinces: Hunan, Jiangxi, and Fujian. Ideally, you want to position your troops in a province that only borders one other province. That is somewhat unrealistic at this time, and it's a bit of a lottery which one will actually be the subject of the border conflict. For some reason, when I click this now, it's not guaranteed to be Hunan that is the subject of the conflict. It can flip to any one of those 3 I just named. You can direct it a little bit, like I said, by putting only troops in a province with minimal borders. That way you have some sort of idea which way the conflict's going to go. Now, looking towards the future, what we want to do is simple. You want to take as much of the Chinese coast as possible, simply because 1, very populous and good industrial centers, and 2, perhaps even more important, this will limit the amount of space Japan has to maneuver or land naval invasions. That way, regular China has far better odds of surviving, and the longer regular China is around, the more we can use those border conflicts to eat them from behind. And our second purpose will be to eventually get to this province here, Liangshan, that opens the way up to Xibei, Sanma, and perhaps even Shaanxi, if we can get some good conflicts going in that area. But like I said, there's a bunch of RNG involved. You never really know which province you're going to get, so I'm just going to press this, and it turns out it wasn't Hunan. No, it's going to be for Jiangxi. No problem, we'll take what we can get. Now that we know this is the province that will be contested, we'll simply line up our troops, we'll spread them out over roughly 3 tiles and get them in position. And now we simply wait for this timer to run out and start the conflict. And a little addendum that I forgot to mention earlier, the reason these 3 units and all future units that we train are here in Hainan is because Hainan does not border anything. That way they won't factor into the strange decision making of where the incident happens, and we can sort of steer it with our 6 units that will be concentrated. There we go, the border conflict is ready to be pressed. However, I see that China still has a very large amount of divisions in position. Now I'm going to wait a little bit and see if they strategically redeploy some of these divisions. That might make their org dip, giving us an advantage, or they might even shift a lot of their army to the north now that Japan is almost ready to start some of their shenanigans. We have 29 days, so why rush it? And as soon as I finish that sentence, China has started some massive redeployments. So let's see where those troops go. And in 3 days, most of the Chinese army has disappeared. Excellent, it will now escalate the border conflict. And instead of having to fight almost the entire Chinese army, now there's only 1 division here. Some more might trickle in, but they won't be here in time to really matter. Our divisions are also quite superior to theirs. We'll simply go through them like a knife through butter. And victory! That just gave us a free province. Now, it's not core territory yet. It will be eventually, so make sure to garrison it. Civilian oversight works, but local police force might be a little bit better. As for research, infantry equipment's a little bit ahead of time, so we'll pick the artillery improvement, and the second slot can work on more industry. We need production, we need guns, we need artillery, and we certainly need air. Green air is king. For 1 and 2, it's the easiest way into Japan. We also got a big refund of 100 PP for winning the conflict, so that's pretty great. It costs 100 to initiate, it rewards 100 if you win, and it deducts 150 if you lose. So only initiate a border conflict if you're fairly certain you're going to win it. We also don't have a new one available. I believe they're on a 180-day timer for every separate faction, so it's a good idea to move on to the Warlords next. And with that in mind, I will be picking Institute cross-border raids first, and then head to public education reform and the rest of the right-hand tree. And we'll redeploy the units to our next target. We do have quite a bit of political power now, so this is a good time to bump up to free trade. We have 61, but it still takes 70 days to get the next focus. Yeah, we should have 100 by then. More army experience. This should be enough to flesh out this unit to a nice standard 7-2, so 7 infantry battalions, 2 artillery battalions. Not perfect, we'll still need to double this for actual proper combat use, but this will shred anything the Chinese throw at you in these border conflicts. Now that we're starting to pick up some more territory, our production is going to change towards the future. So I like to fill out my infantry equipment first, up to like 5-ish factories. We'll need more guns than we need cannon in the early stages. Excellent. With this focus done, we can now do to the Warlords what we've done to China itself. So we'll now stage an incident at the Yunnan border. One thing to note with the smaller Chinese nations is don't use the border conflicts to completely gobble them up. Especially Communist China only has the one province. We still need all of them around if we are going to do Panda-Monium afterwards. We have to be at odds with all of the other Chinese factions. So that means Yunnan, Communist China, Shaanxi, Xibei, Sanma, Xinjiang, and China all still have to be around. They can be capitulated, sure, but they cannot be annexed. They have to be there in the conflict with us. Let's see what they have on the border. Yeah, we should be able to take him. Escalate. Now we've picked up interwar artillery. It's time to finally get some research done. Get the electronic engineering tab. Just look at these divisions. They don't stand a chance against ours. Another victory! And our units hardly took a scratch. And I'm going to move my troops back to the coastlines here. I would very much like to take this coastal province here. That would open up the way for further expansion along the coast, and the more of the coastline we have, the fewer places Japan has to naval invade, allowing China to last just that little bit longer. After which, we will go to Liangshan and flip a coin here between that province and Guizhou, whatever, this one. Very much like to get this one, opening up the way into Xibei Sanma. Like I said, the border conflicts, well, a lot of coins being flipped here. With our factories slowly finishing, let's start building some mills as well. And like clockwork, Japan has declared on China. Let's see how long China lasts. Now in the current patch, China tends to do very well against Japan. And with a little luck, they might actually push into Manchukuo. Now that's rather unlikely with us eating them from behind, but still they can drag that out quite some time, giving us more opportunities to take provinces, because every province that we take now is one that we don't have to spend points on in an eventual peace deal. What we're going to do is let Japan and China fight it out while we take as many provinces as we can via the border mechanics. Once you see that China is having a lot of problems, that's when we're going to jump in there and declare on our rivals. We will actually be helping Japan, even snaking our way into their faction. They will actually just invite us. We'll take what we can in the eventual peace deal and then use the safety that we get from being in Japan's faction to quickly build up our military so we're strong enough to overrun Japan and crush them. And that should net us at least 2 achievements, probably 3. There's one for deploying 1,000,000 men. So yeah, we should get that as well. And with the extra research slot, that's another slot for the industry. Now that we're getting more research slots, I'm not constantly going to remind you what to research. It is fairly straightforward. Make sure to keep up to date with your industry and your research. Those are no-brainers. Don't forget to pick up airplanes and keep them up to date. You might not be able to defeat Japan in the air straight away, but you will eventually start edging out as your industry picks up. Airplanes are the easiest and fastest way onto the Japanese homeland that will allow paratrooper operations. Otherwise, you will have to wipe out the Imperial Japanese Navy, and good luck with that. Just takes too long in my honest opinion. Other than that, I believe your main focuses should be infantry equipment, artillery, and doctrines. Let's flip another coin here. It says stage incident at Hunan border. I am willing to bet it's not going to be Hunan. And I'm right, it's the Fujian border. Well, at least that works into our favor. We'll take Fujian. Now while we're doing this, we're not taking too many casualties or losing too much equipment. So once infantry equipment is out of the red, start making a few of these terrible garrison divisions, just so we can start training them. We can switch them over to a decent template later on. At least this way we'll have troops out the door. Time for another border conflict. Just look at us shredding these Chinese divisions. They don't stand a chance. Let's see, we have enough political power, and it will take another 180 days before we can do the next conflict with China. Might as well spend some. We could go up to limited conscription. I don't see why we should. We're not losing a lot of manpower and we'll get a lot more once we gain our cores. Nothing interesting in political advisors. Most of the good stuff is locked behind focuses. Could improve military high command, but the only reasonable one we get here is an army regrouping. And at this point, that's not very beneficial. Now for chief of the army, we could get this guy. 10% army attack, but I don't think we need it. Sure, it's good, and we'll pick him up eventually, but right now we're winning these border conflicts without any issue, so I'm not going to waste time on him. Instead, I think I'll bump us up to partial mobilization. That's going to be pretty great for our industry to ramp up. We've finished long-term economic planning. I don't think these two are worth taking. Sure, 100% research bonus is decent, but we have other priorities. We are going to rush down to proclaim rival government. This will, for one, give us cores on all of China, and two, give us the new focus tree, namely the Chinese focus tree. And we need that focus tree because there's some good stuff in there that will help us tackle China. I wouldn't bother with seek Japanese support or cult of personality. Once again, to reiterate, even though we have the option to stage an incident at the Dali border, we are not going to do that. This will completely annex Yunnan and lock us out of the Panda-Monium achievement. And I'd very much like to get as many achievements as possible in every single run, so we're not doing that. And we can stage another incident. China, and as you can see, it's highlighting the right province, and when I click it, it's probably going to turn to the left province. And indeed it did. It changed to the left province, Liangshan. This is really great for us, and please excuse the dogs in the background. My neighbor has some dogs, and well, dogs will bark. Liangshan opens the way up to Gannan and into Shibei Sanma, and we've taken Liangshan. Immediately redeploy these troops and stage an incident at the Gannan border.
6 hours later.
And now that we've proclaimed a rival government, you can see we now have the very large focus tree of regular China. And what we're going to go for is rushing towards the anti-communism focus. This will give us a goal on communist China and Xinjiang, both of whom are in the Chinese United Front, and that will be our ticket into Panda-Monium. And if Japan and China are still fighting it out, that will allow us to join the Japanese faction, and together we will crush China and divvy up the spoils between us, after which we can build up safely under the protection of the Japanese faction until we're ready to stab them in the back. And it's looking like we will have plenty of time to gobble up China. And we'll also start making a little bit of that equipment. Oh, it looks like Japan landed some troops on the Shandong Peninsula. I'm curious if this is going to be a tipping point or not. It's May of 1939 and we've become quite chunky at the expense of our rivals. But it looks like Japan finally made a breakthrough, so we could be running out of time. Thankfully, we're close to finishing this focus. That will allow us to jump in there and take some of the spoils before it ends. Plus an achievement. Always nice to have an achievement. Might as well invest in military high command. As you can see, now that we have cores, we have all the manpower we need, so there's no point in going over volunteer only. Still nothing good in the political advisors. Still can't use any of these designers, so army regrouping it is. Now I have to point out, this is an extremely lucky run in regards to Japan versus China. In your game, Japan could be doing much better, and it might even be required the moment you get to anti-communism that you need to declare on the communists or risk not getting Panda-Monium. But since we're doing so well, I want to keep this gravy train going and see just how much of China I can eat without actually having to fight China. Alright, we have anti-communism in the bag. Don't go for subjugate the warlords next. It doesn't really work when the warlords are fighting Japan. but later on, we could pull off some shenanigans with this one. As for the giant Chinese tree, I do like to go for that extra research slot while I wait until I'm able to do subjugate the warlords. Other than that, I don't have any immediate recommendations. At this point, you're more than powerful enough to not really need focuses, but once the conflict with Japan starts, the focuses below pick a fight with Japan are pretty good, just so you can really kick their teeth in. So we're gonna go for the research slot here, the expand the Academica Sinica first. See if we can actually get there, because I think it's about time we jump in on this conflict with Japan. Yeah, China's starting to lose, but we still have time actually.
A few moments later.
Seeing as we're sitting on quite a bit of army experience, I'm going to make the final changes, well, the more drastic changes to our shock troops. We'll bump these up to 14 fours. This would be the division you end up with, 40 combat with, 14 infantry battalions, 4 artillery battalions. It's by no means a perfect division, but versus the AI, this does quite well. Armor is always going to outperform infantry divisions in an offensive role, but for an infantry division, this thing kicks ass. Alright, time for what is probably going to be our final border conflict. Let's click this and see if we can take Shanghai. It highlights Huangshan, but who knows? This will be quite interesting because Japan controls quite a bit of Shanghai. Now, you'll see that the border conflict mechanics are completely broken because we will simply kick Japan out and take all of that for ourselves with zero conflict. Thanks, I guess? Alright, so let's see if it works. And I think because China doesn't control a single unit in the area that we actually border, we immediately got victory and all of the territory. Tell me how this is not broken. See how the surrender progress is. It's actually still pretty okay. So I am going to tempt fate here, and I will leave those troops on the Shibei-Sanma border and try and grab a last little bit of Shibei-Sanma, maybe one bit of Shaanxi, but that's going to be it. Meanwhile, I'll prepare the divisions in the south here. These are all terrible units, but their sole purpose will be to stand there and take damage, while the actual good units, those up here, make some offensive operations toward victory points. Combined with the Japanese forces, that will be more than sufficient to take China out. And as more of these finish and the 2 army groups here fill up, we'll start converting some units into the shock troops template to give us a little bit more punch. And we've completed the Academica Sinica, so financial policy is gonna be good. That's an actual decent advisor. 5% consumer goods. Yep, time for our final border conflict with Shibei-Sanma. We do have time. As the Chinese front narrows, because we're taking land, they become better and better at holding the Japanese off, or at least slowing them down. And we've taken the last big chunk of Shibei-Sanma. This actually gives us access to Shaanxi, so I'm just gonna quickly pop my troops over there. See if I can't take one of their bits. The more of China we can take without having to go to a peace deal, the better for us. Now, as for the rest of your focuses, you could start going down this generic tree here to get rid of your ineffective bureaucracy, for one. Or you can pick a fight with Japan without actually having to use that goal. This will just give you access to some pretty good focuses that will improve your chances against Japan. Not that you need much improvement. At this point, you're very powerful already. Or you could take the foreign investors. These will give you some nice bonuses. So I'll start with foreign investors for now, while we wait until we can do some more interesting things.
A few inches later.
Alright, all of our boys are in position. It's time to settle this once and for all. We will declare on Mao here, let some time tick by, and we instantly get an invite to the faction by Japan. Great. We're now in this. Ask Japan if we can join them, and they'll accept. And simply start pushing into China. They are so weak right now, they won't be able to put up any semblance of a fight. And that's it. China is no more. Obviously, Japan does what Japan does best, and puppets everyone. That's fine. We can still make use of some interesting mechanics in Hearts of Iron to get our stuff. See if we can't take at least some interesting bits for ourselves. No, we really don't have a lot of score, do we? And that's about all the things we can take. Have a nice look at this horrible mess that we've made of China. That's okay, we'll fix that later on. And conclude the peace deal. Yeah, that's gorgeous, isn't it? Okay, now, very important, do not leave the Japanese faction until you're ready. You have to build up now. Use this time wisely to become as strong as possible. The moment you leave, Japan will start justifying on you, and it will only take roughly 10 days for them to finish. Not enough time to build up, really, if they take you by surprise. So, first build up, then leave. Subjugate the warlords still works. This will still fire an event with about a 50-50% chance for every warlord to become your puppet. It doesn't matter that there already be Japan's puppets. So thank you, Paradox, for that. So with that in mind, we'll start with Subjugate the Warlords right now so we know where we stand, and we'll start our massive build-up. We need a lot of troops, we need a lot of front lines to cover here. Also, seeing that we have a lot of army experience and we have some time to safely build up, I'm also going to upgrade our garrisons to at least 20 width, giving them some more staying power. Yes, we'll be short a few guns for a while, but we can make more very quickly. Also, logistics companies, very important in rural China, especially for our 40 widths. Alright, we are about to finish Subjugate the Warlords, so let's see what the result is. Okay, Ma refused. Lu Yong, no idea who that is, but he refused. Oh, sorry. No Yunnan, no Shibei Sanma. Xinjiang joined, and Shaanxi joined. I'll go to our subject, and you'll see we have Xinjiang and Shaanxi as our subjects. So we took 50% of Japan's puppets for free. How is that not a good deal, I tell you? So from this point on, I'm not going to be highlighting any more focuses. You have the important ones. You work in whatever direction you personally feel is best. There is nothing that is super optimal compared to anything else, I believe, personally. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, tell me in the comments. Now I will be building up the military, and I'll get right back to you when we're done doing that, because that is just very boring looking at me producing units. So, back in a jiffy. And welcome back. Through the power of editing, you join us again. And those of you with eyes might notice that the map looks quite a bit different than it did before. That is because, unfortunately, the footage was lost due to both technical reasons and me being a massive idiot. That said, let's quickly review what is different this time around. First of all, Japan took a lot more of China in this timeline. They were far more aggressive and China could not hold them off for as long. However, there are also good points for us this time. As you can see, we have 3 puppets here. That is because the focus Subjugate the Warlords turned out very well for us. We are only missing Xinjiang up here, and, well, we don't really care much about them. We can take them on quite easily should we come to blows. So, we are going to be sitting here in the safety of Japan's faction, build up until we are ready to take them down a peg, and then complete the rest of the achievements. As for political power, I have begun by integrating Shaanxi, or at least the army of Shaanxi. Past experiences have taught me that their generals tend to be quite experienced by the time the conflict with Japan is over. There we have it. Eventually, Japan will declare on the Philippines, starting a bunch of trouble in the Pacific. We will stay out of this. No matter how many times Japan asks, we will not be joining them against the Allies. We will not join the Allies, but we don't need that mess right now. We'll just sit here and wait until we're strong enough to take on Japan on our own. So let Japan spread itself thin all over the Pacific. That's fine.
2,000 years later.
Okay, it's 1942. I think we've dragged this out long enough. We have a sizable military with more units on the way. We're working on improving our condition even more, but right now Japan is super distracted in the Pacific. There's hardly anything left on the continent, so I think it's about time we leave this faction and we'll see what happens. Maybe it's time we pick a fight with Japan, or rather Japan will pick a fight with us. I forgot they still have that goal on Shaanxi, and they immediately used it, which is fine and dandy by me because they're not even close to being prepared for this. Let's just drag their puppets into this as well. They are about to have a very bad time. Well, if you're wondering why I can simply click this button here, it is because we are already in a conflict with their overlord, and that means we can drag them in this way, apparently. I don't have any actual goals on them. I can just click it, so I will. I'm also going to start making a few transport planes. We'll need this for easy access to the Japanese home islands. Their navy is a pain to eradicate. It's quite large and pretty strong. We have nothing in the name of shipbuilding worth mentioning, so the air will be our ticket in. Next step on our way to Japan will be to get the actual paratroopers. Could get this earlier, I kind of forgot about it, but they don't really take that long to research. As you can see, there's really no threat to us on the continent. We can just sweep everything aside. Our divisions are good, we have a lot of them, and Japan is just super distracted in the Pacific right now. It's just a matter of sweeping down all the way into South Korea, then we'll build an airport down there and get our paratroopers ready. Time to reorganize a little. This is a rather poor infrastructure area here up in Manchuria, so don't put too many troops there or their combat effectiveness will drop like crazy. Some of those naval invasions are going to be large and put a lot of pressure on your coastal garrisons, but those 20 width divisions should be able to hold if you have enough of them. If you don't, well, you'll have to use some last stand orders and redirect regular forces to relieve them. Just don't let Japanese naval invasions balloon out of control. Time to get ourselves some paratroopers. Oh, as you can see, I've also started making a few armored divisions. This isn't anything fancy, I just got bored and decided to make a 40 width light tank template. Nothing fancy here. I haven't even used them, they're not ready yet, so they don't factor into this at all. I just got bored. Now for paratroopers, make something nice and sturdy. This division should be able to hold 20 combat width with some good support. Just make as many of these as you can, or convert some troops that aren't currently needed. See how many I can train. Oh yeah, 10 should do. Train them and send them off to battle as soon as possible. That's Japan kicked off of the continent. Now all we need to do is get our paratroopers ready and we'll strike at the Japanese home islands. This is arguably the hardest bit of the achievement. Either Japan has turned the home islands into an impregnable fortress or they have almost nothing there. There's hardly ever a scenario where it's in between those two. Now that we control South Korea, we will be building an airbase here. We'll need this area, that way we can paradrop the home islands. Alright, with the paratroopers ready, the airport's being built, let's start our airdropping campaign, or at least preparations. We will need to hit Hiroshima. Usually, and I do say usually, Japan doesn't garrison Hiroshima. In your campaign, that could be different, but there's not much we can do about that. AI behavior is unpredictable at best. To give us the best odds of actually taking Hiroshima, I will be paradropping all along the area, enabling us to reinforce the battle from all sides and preventing additional Japanese reinforcements from simply flooding in. So we'll be hitting every tile next to Hiroshima, as well as a few tiles out to block off any Japanese reinforcements coming in. We have an army standing by on the port, ready to rush in when the port is taken. As for the air, I'm currently fighting them over Chinese territory. They'll have their air force concentrated elsewhere. I have not put up my own fighters over the home islands. If I do that, Japan will respond and it will be difficult for us to get air superiority. As long as we do not put our airplanes up, Japan puts theirs in more critical locations according to AI thinking, which means we'll have an open window to paradrop the home islands. Seeing how spread out Japan is, I think we have good odds of taking the home islands. It is unfortunate, however, that they never took Vietnam off Vichy France. This is a very good place for them to start funneling troops into. Well. Can't have everything. So let's take the speed down and see if our paratroopers have any success. Immediately take it in Hiroshima. That's good. We'll send our first army of 24 shock troops over and we'll immediately order the paratroopers to spread out and secure the outlying area. With the airport under control, we can start moving some fighters across as well. And there we go. That concludes the conflict with Japan. Now for the art of the peace deal. Few things to take into account here. It's not a terrible thing to have happen if the Allies puppet or liberate some of these warlord states. It would be bad if they annex some of those states though. Fortunately, democratic AI isn't very keen on annexing. They will most likely turn them into a puppet or turn them into a democratic version. That's fine. We can still use border conflicts to take all the territory we want off those things. We can't do that, however, with Manchukuo and Manchukuo. So these territories have to be ours. Taiwan also has to be ours, for obvious reasons. Next, let's see if we can take all of Japan's home states in one go. Well, it would appear that we do have enough participation to take all of Japan's home states in one go, the entirety of Manchukuo and Manchukuo. Also note, you need all of Japan's cores, and that includes these islands here of Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. The reason why I'm also taking Taiwan in this is because it's impossible to border conflict Taiwan. So I don't want to see a Chinese puppet pop up there. Then we will have to fight the Allies, and that's a very bad deal for everyone. So let's end this first turn and see what happens. That's a pretty good deal overall. Now I want to dissuade India from taking this bit here that they control, so I'm going to annex that myself, and it's still our turn. So far it's going well. The only thing the Allies have done so far is liberating the Mariana Federation, satelliting Japanese Micronesia, and turning Japanese Micronesia into a supervised state. I don't quite know why they did both of those things, but they did it. And now it's a matter of taking bits and pieces, prioritizing the important ones. And with that, we're done. We control all of Japan. If for some reason in this peace deal you would not have enough points to do it in one go, the alternative is to simply puppet them and then feed everything to your puppet. Fortunately, we did not have to do that. We control almost all of mainland China as well. We simply need to integrate our two puppets here via the Warlord mechanics, so we need to spend a bunch of PP on integrating them. That will take quite a while. Now I'll simply keep playing a little bit until these puppets are ready to be eaten. And through the magic of editing, we're back. I'm sure you can see the world has changed quite a bit. Well, I got bored and I decided to hop in with the Axis. And that did not go great. No. I'm the last man standing here, and it's me versus the world, pretty much. But that's okay, our run is now over anyway. We control all of mainland China, we have all the provinces required, and we control all of Japan's core territory. So that is Battlecry finished. During this run, we also finished Panda-Monium and Make a Man Out of You. I had quite a bit of fun playing as one of the Warlord states. It had been a while. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing to see more challenges or achievement videos. Hit that like button and hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you want to see me try next. Want to see me do achievements? Want to see me try some challenges? I'm always up for some good suggestions. If you didn't like the video, that's fine. Just hit that dislike button and tell me in the comments what I did wrong. I'm always looking to improve. This has been me, Bitter Steel, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.